Hello and welcome to Signature Themes Selection Day. Since the summer of 2019, teams of University of Kent academics have come together to develop ideas around the nature of research at Kent in a fast-changing world. Today, those teams will finally have a chance to present that vision before an esteemed decision-making panel chooses the themes that will shape the university's research future. Now, before we hear from those teams, just a few items on housekeeping. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, you can send in your comments or questions in the live comment section on screen, and we'll get those answered for you by the decision-making panel. Of course, these will come in handy for the Signature Research Themes Task Group when they come to deliberate later on. You can also find out more about the shortlisted themes, the people behind them, and how you can get involved by going to research.kent.ac.uk/signature-themes. As you'll notice, due to government guidance, we're all maintaining social distancing, so all the presenters will be on the line from their various homes and offices, so do bear with us if we encounter any technical hitches. Right, so to kick things off, I'm delighted to hand over now to Vice-Chancellor Professor Karen Cox for opening remarks. Vice-Chancellor, over to you.
Thank you, Karen, and welcome everybody. I'm very excited that we've actually got to this point. Today we're going to hear from our researchers, our research teams, 8 themes that have been selected through a process which I think has been incredibly challenging but also incredibly enjoyable. An opportunity for colleagues at the University of Kent to make connections, to think about the work that they're doing, for us to really drill down into where is our research excellence, where is that innovation, and particularly build on one of the things that I think is very distinctive about Kent, which is interdisciplinarity. How do we come together through different disciplinary lenses to address issues that are often global challenges? I've been hugely impressed throughout my time here at the university in terms of the kinds of work that Kent researchers undertake, the kinds of questions that they ask, but particularly how they work with others and how they work to engage across a range of communities to make sure that the work is relevant, is engaging and genuinely addressing issues of real importance. So I'm hugely excited. I want to thank those colleagues who've given up a huge amount of time, both on the task force to bring this together, but particularly those colleagues that are presenting today. I hope that you all enjoy it. I'm looking forward very much to hearing what we're going to be deciding on later, what are going to be our signature research themes for the University of Kent. And I really look forward to working on this in the future with you all. So thank you very much, enjoy the day, and I look forward to making sure that this is a really enjoyable session. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Vice-Chancellor. We'll be hearing from the Signature Research Themes Task Group shortly after this short break. We'll see you in a sec. Hello and welcome back to Signature Themes Selection Day. I'm now going to hand over to the Signature Research Themes Task Group and over to Dr. Tim Hopthrow, who will be starting off. Tim, over to you.
We're all absolutely thrilled to be here and very much looking forward to hearing the presentations this morning. It's been quite a road to get here with multiple postponements of this day, but we're delighted that we're going ahead today. We're sorry that this has to be online, and we understand that that has a few downsides. For example, it's not going to be quite as interactive as we hoped, but we're planning a big face-to-face event when we can all get back together, and we're really looking forward to that, to seeing you all in person. We have 8 shortlisted themes today giving presentations that give us an insight into what they're about, their interests, and the fascinating work they've been doing since they've come together as a network. These presentations are very much designed as an invitation for you to get involved, to contribute to the themes, whether they end up being themes that are chosen or not at the end of today. It's very much an invitation for you to think about how you can contribute and to get involved. It's been a really involved process for the themes to get to this point. We started off nearly 2 years ago with presenting ideas about what themes should be and how they should look, and that they should be academic led. And there have been a number of steps that our teams have had to go through. They've had to identify possible themes and how to work together. They've had to reach across the university to get groups of people together with common interests. We've had whole day workshops where they've had to work on their ideas and club together and think more broadly. There was an initial application. They've had feedback from colleagues both internally and externally to the university. They had a full application to do, a shortlisting phase. They've continued to work together since then, and then today that culminates in the presentations that you'll see today. So a huge thank you to the themes for all the work that they've been doing up until this point. It's been fantastic from our point of view to see it all. I'm going to hand over to Catherine now.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a little bit about why we're doing this, about why signature research themes at Kent. And about what we need out of these themes for us to keep at the front of our minds as we're listening to the presentations. So the University of Kent, as many of you will know, founded in the 60s as an interdisciplinary institution. And increasingly now, 55 years on, we're looking to ask and to answer larger questions, more far-reaching research questions. And in order to do so, as Karen was alluding a minute ago, we need to foster an environment that facilitates interdisciplinary working, to bring different approaches, perspectives, and expertise to bear on complex issues, ones that transcend individual disciplines. At the same time, funding bodies are looking to make larger grants, often with short lead times. We need established networks and teams to be able to capitalize on these. And beyond that, to provide support and continuity at other times to the development of our research culture. And then, of course, these themes have got to reflect our identity at Kent, answering those difficult questions such as who we are, how do we stand out as an institution of researchers, and what do we stand for? How do we make a difference? These are questions that it's important, in fact, that it's urgent for us to answer, for our staff, for our students, and for the communities of which we as the University of Kent are a part. And for students and communities in particular, themes need to be a part of our handshake to the outside world, outside the University of Kent. They help us to make the boundaries between what's outside our organisation, our publics, our students, and the university more porous, to make it easier for people to collaborate with us. And finally, of course, we must increase our research and innovation income. And we could try to do this by telling individuals to do more. But for us, there's another way, and it's a really important and productive route forward. We need to create an environment that enables us to collaborate successfully and to ask and answer those big, exciting questions in research through collaboration. So beyond today, the themes have to be more than a static snapshot of the University of Kent in 2020. They have to be dynamic. You can join at any time. Some themes will be successful, they'll thrive and they'll grow. Other themes may finish their work more quickly. There are going to be opportunities going forward to create new themes as our university develops and the questions that we need to answer change. So in other words, today is a really important day, but there are other opportunities in the future to develop this and take it in new directions. And we want you to be a part of both of those occasions. Ultimately, then, themes are about creating a more effective, supportive, and exciting research environment. And I'll pass over to Dan to say a little bit more.
Okay, so as you've heard already, so we've got 8 shortlisted and extremely exciting and innovative themes here, and all of the themes will be presented today. These presentations are aimed at showcasing the themes and giving you an opportunity to get involved. So, as Catherine said, these themes are dynamic. So while you sit back and enjoy these presentations, please think about how you can contribute to them. So be you an academic, a student, or a member of professional services department within the university, or a member of the creative business or support communities, be that across the region or the globe. Don't worry if you can't stay for the whole morning for the presentations. They will be recorded and you'll be able to watch them again later. Again, due to the online nature of the presentations, there'll be no opportunity for synchronous questions, so we won't be able to answer them straight away. But questions are extremely important in the whole development process and the decision-making process, and themes will welcome them. So please post your questions and we'll ensure that the answers are all put on the themes web pages. So, and also, so please take a moment or two just to have a look at those theme web pages as well. So we'd like to say a huge thank you to the themes and their leads for all the work they've done and the engagement they've put in. And so without further ado, let's get this show in the road and I'll hand back to Cameron.
Thank you very much, Professor Mulvihill, and thank you very much to the rest of the Signature Research Themes Task Group. We're going to have a short break before we hear from those 8 presentations on a wide range of themes, as we've got a little taste to already. Remember, as Professor Mulvihill says, if you want to add questions or feedback, you can do so by putting them into the YouTube or Facebook live comment sections on screen, or by going to the website research.kent.ac.uk, signature-themes, where you can also join a theme. We'll be back shortly with the first presentation. Don't go anywhere. Now let's get underway with the first presentation, Food Systems, Natural Resources and the Environment. We've got Professor Chrysokoidis here for that presentation. Professor Chrysokoidis, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Professor George Chrysokoidis. I'm Professor of Marketing from the Business School. I stand here on behalf of the Food Systems, Natural Resources and Environment signature theme and the steering committee, as well as the 70+ members of staff from all across the university. Next slide, please. You can see that we represent the entire university, and the steering committee is coming from all 3 faculties. And as I have said, our people, the members of the team, are active from across the university. Next slide, please. We have been working on all aspects of the food chains, starting from production, moving to processing, moving to manufacturing, moving to retail and logistics, moving on to waste, from all scientific disciplines. Next slide, please. These disciplines are at least 15, and our members, the members of our signature theme, are very active, very successful on engagement, innovation, research, and teaching in all those aspects. And all these are interlinked with each other, interface with each other, and they form a fantastic pool of resources, skills, and abilities for furthering what is really, really important for the region, and we think for the university as well. Next slide. And the reason is simple. Kent as a region is just that. It is food, it is natural resources, and the environment. And obviously, as you can see in the United Nations Sustainability Goals, those elements are truly embedded across all topics. And on top and beyond that, you can see those topics being fully and permanently represented in the Global Challenges Research Fund, and on top of that, in the Eastern Arc new themes. You will ask, have we entered a new world? Yes, we have. Brexit and COVID-19, post-Brexit and post-COVID-19 world will not only strengthen the importance of those themes, it will expand their importance. And Brexit and COVID-19 has highlighted issues around food security, dining health, food growing, food space, as well as zoonotic transfers. We represent those themes, and we will not only make sure that we strengthen the place, the importance of the university, but we will also strengthen the importance of the region in this respect. Next slide, please. We have a vision, and the vision is from stakeholders, including research, public policy, and organizations in the evolution of business models, food cultures, diets, land use, and more. And the range of expertise that is included in our team allows already to generate fundamental contributions in these areas to help the wider society as well as the business to move on. Next slide, please. The vision has to materialize in a mission, and our mission is to synergize, to create synergies across departments and divisions. It is to strategize forward. It is to create a visible and branded presence with key stakeholders, as well as the Eastern Arc. It is to help the county and the region maintain a competitive food systems, natural resource and environment landscape in the very challenging world ahead of us, and make sure that this is funded by successful applications. Next slide, please. Governance. I will act as a leader. I'm successful in and have a strong track record of research funds, but the steering team is active and it is just excellent. The team culture is phenomenal, and we have got a very connected team which is fully functional. We will invite leading external experts to join us as advisors, but we will also reach out to everyone at the university, and as many as possible, to listen to what they say, what we should do, and how we should do things. And obviously, we will work with using specific plans, milestones, and deliverables. We have been used to do that. Next slide, please. Targets. We put a kind of frame of 3 years. The first few months we'll spend on finalizing on foci and what course we will target to apply. In the second year, we will try to establish, and we aim to establish, and we will establish a research center. And then from month 19 onwards, we will aim and we will manage to identify teaching synergies in order to deliver. Throughout this period, we'll have to communicate our identity, reach out and strategize with key stakeholders in order to make sure that whatever we do, it has got potential, is able to get funded, and reaches the expected outcomes. Next slide, please. Teaching. We will investigate how we can embed the research themes and include what we are teaching already. So we will first identify how what we are doing interfaces with the curriculum of different schools in the university, and then move on and establish a master's degree which has different pathways and use existing modules in order not to create additional cost to the university. And as a result, we'll manage to not only support with students what we are doing, we will generate additional teaching-related income on top of the research-related income. Next slide, please. Interfacing. I'm a co-investigator in the successful and massive research fund that we have been successful when we applied last year, which is the Growing Kent Medway. We have already established a bridge, working bridge, very successful with Colin Robinson and the Growing Kent Medway. We will explore that further, and we will make sure that we interface perfectly with the Growing Kent Medway, supporting them, and then them supporting us as a signature thing. On top of that, Kent, the Kent lead for the sustainability, natural resources, and food theme of the Eastern Arc is a steering team member, and Karen will be heavily consulted in what we do and how we do. So we secure that we interface with Eastern Arc as well. Next slide, please. We have got a range of partners, and we have got successful track records in our applications. We have got a lot of people who are participating in the research, in the signature theme, and that is 70 people, 70 plus. They are expertise, skills, and resources. Networks are just massive. Next slide, please. I am concluding my presentation, and by doing so, I want to thank the work members and the steering team for all the work that have done so far, which has been phenomenal. And make sure that the central argument of what we do remains very vivid and strong. Kent as a region is characterized by food systems, natural resources, and the environment. We think that the university must have a very strong presence, visible presence, a home that will allow those people already active and very successful in the areas to make sure they talk to each other, they work together, and then we apply for money and we teach that, and that can only happen if we are selected. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well, Professor Chrysokoidis. Now remember, if you have any questions or any feedback about this presentation, you can leave it on the YouTube and Facebook live comments on screen. You can also, of course, if you're a University of Kent academic and would like to sign up to this theme, you can visit the website research.kent.ac.uk/signature-themes to register your details. When we come back, we'll have the next presentation, Conflict, Security, Rights and Violence. We'll see you soon. Welcome back. The next presentation will be on conflict, security, rights and violence. Professors Klotz Figueres and Professor Natalia Sobrevilla Pereira and Dr. Nurse, I'll hand over to you.
This is Jason Nurse and I'm a lecturer in cybersecurity in the School of Computing and the theme lead for the sciences. I would first like to thank you very much for logging on to hear more about our signature theme on conflict, security, rights and violence. My colleagues and I are really excited to have the opportunity to present this theme to you, as we believe this can play a key part in Kent's strategy, while also building on ongoing developments in international developments in society. Personally, what drew me most to this theme is its appreciation for computing, cybersecurity, and related topics. And I believe these and many other areas of my colleagues, Irma and Natalia will discuss later on, relate quite a bit to the research that we do in Kent. To start, I would like to briefly speak about three key components which lie at the heart of this SRT. First slide, please. So, thank you. So next slide, please. Thank you. So the first component really tries to acknowledge our history and the connection between past violence and present violence in politics. Topics such as conflict, security, and rights are really central to society, to understanding both who we are and the state of society today. On screen, we present one example of this, focused around the Black Lives Matter movement. One of the stark realities with this movement is how certain parts of history are still causing significant divisions in our current world. Through the lens of our SRT, we would be keen to adopt a more coherent strategy towards exploring this topic, and for instance, related topics such as history, the history of slavery, for instance, and how that has led to ongoing discussions about reparations, or even how the words "I can't breathe," which were echoed by George Floyd and Eric Garner, actually linked to a long history of sophistication of Black individuals. These are the realities of today's world and realities which we aim to tackle head on in our theme. Next slide, please. Thank you. So one of the realities that we have to acknowledge is the fact that conflict, insecurity, violence are multifaceted. And as such, any methods or approaches to address these issues needs to be multifaceted as well. On the screen, you'll see an example of the Rohingya camps in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. This is the largest refugee camp on the planet. Now, focusing on mitigating the ills of such a conflict requires a multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary approach. For instance, understanding insights from historians could provide more insight into the origins of the conflict. Looking at, for instance, public health expertise could actually help to mitigate the health risk related to that emerge inside these camps. Economic expertise also is quite important because this could help create sustainable livelihoods for the Rohingya in these camps. And even computing as a field, as a domain, can actually help significantly here, for instance, in creating a reliable identification system for the refugees. Now, the only way to address these issues, and I want to really come back to this, the only way to address these issues is through transdisciplinary approaches. Approaches where we try to look at across the breadth of these topics and understand more about what's happening and try to kind of develop approaches to best tackle these issues. Next slide, please. Now, it's also important to we also have one eye on the future. And it's also important to appreciate the fact that conflicts and harms change as society advances. Society's reliance on technology has opened our world to, of course, a number of new positives, or even kind of topics such as cybersecurity, data privacy, online rights are very, very topical. But at the same time, however, we have to acknowledge that there are continuous discussions about larger issues such as cyber warfare, for instance, nation-state attacks, attribution, and even the broad topic of cybercrime. In the image here, the image shown here, we have an example of kind of the stock image of a hacker, or kind of the profile for, let's say, a cyber criminal. We have a dark screen, we have the hoodie, we have matrix-like code. The reality, of course, is much more complex. Through our SRT, we can explore the various perspectives, such as, for example, from psychology perspective, trying to understand what motivates these individuals, what motivates individuals or even groups. Politics and international relations can play a key part here in understanding attribution at a large scale when it comes to, let's say, cyber attacks. And even focusing once again on computing, because that's one of the kind of domains I work the most in, looking at models to kind of understand the technologies that criminals are using, and also maybe try to profile them in terms of looking at behaviors and various patterns. Now, one thing I want to also acknowledge before I hand over to my colleagues is the reality of COVID-19. And this provides another example of the interlinked nature between modern day security concerns. For instance, country blaming, we've seen this, false reporting of cases, we've seen this, and also the range of cyber crimes that have actually emerged alongside the pandemic. Be they around fraud, for instance, which is has been a big thing even in the UK, facing the NHS people in person in NHS, for instance, or when we look at nation-state level attacks, where we have allegations of one nation trying to attack another institution in another nation trying to steal, for instance, the vaccine or research related to COVID. Now, these are all issues that are within the scope to our SRT and are really, really important, and we believe really need to be discussed further. I now hand over to my colleague. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I'm Irma Clots-Figueres from the School of Economics. I'm an expert in development and political economy, and I believe my research could contribute to the analysis of the causes and consequences of the different types of conflict. Next slide, please. As you can see in the slide, this theme draws on considerable strength and depth amongst current university staff, with topics such as the causes and effects of past and current conflicts, violence and abuse, cybersecurity and conflict, and innovations which address the underlying causes of conflict. Around 70 members of staff spread across 4 divisions, just under 10% of the university's REF-eligible researchers, have expressed an interest in being part of this theme's work, indicating both the high level of interest in this field across the university and a sustainable staff base for the team's long-term development. In addition to researchers with significant international and interdisciplinary profiles in their fields, it includes staff with substantial experience in institutional and research leadership within the university and outside. Our signature research theme addresses an important social agenda. We believe that the development of this theme here at Kent is urgently needed, not only because of its timeliness, but because it will help to consolidate and give new focus to outstanding work that is already being done in this field across the university. Next slide, please. We already have 6 research centers actively engaged with these issues who would form part of this theme. The Conflict Analysis Research Center, the Center for Critical International Law, the Center for Critical Thought, the Institute of Advanced Studies in Cybersecurity and Conflict, the Interdisciplinary Research Center in Cybersecurity, and the newly created Development Economics Research Center, as well as the AHRC-funded Public Engagement Center, Gateways to the First World War. Part of the value of this theme, though, is that it doesn't just represent a consolidation of existing research centers. Rather, it is a new structure that will engage an even wider range of staff, including researchers with strong track records of securing major grant awards and undertaking significant impact activities across the world, but whose work has not benefited from a wider institutional structure. Linking these research centers and a strong network of researchers from different divisions is also a unique feature that would strongly differentiate the signature research theme from other initiatives. Next slide, please. This theme focuses on the analysis of very complex issues which require mixing different academic disciplines in order to provide a multifaceted approach with a practical orientation. The focus of this theme is wide and creates opportunities for configuring cross-disciplinary collaborations to the need of particular projects. As Jason said, the fact that there is a large critical mass of researchers at Kent undertaking contemporary and historical research on conflict, security, rights, and violence creates potential for greater analysis of specific issues, such as the causes of conflict, which draws on both historical and contemporary insights, as well as for considering how conflicts and past abuses of rights might be addressed in public memory today. An important part of what makes us distinctive is that this unique combination of researchers and centers will allow us to take a global international approach to questions of conflict, insecurity, and violence, always with an empirical and a practice-oriented approach. The team already has strong links with external partners, both in the UK and abroad. This team builds both on a long history of the study of conflict, security, rights, and violence at the University of Kent, as well as a number of current areas of excellence reflected in the work of research centers and staff publications. Staff associated with this team are at all stages of career development, with recent grant awards for staff associated with it exceeding £8 million. The synergies and opportunities to conduct collaborative work provided by this team are already multiplying Kent's strength in the analysis of conflict, security, rights, and violence. And now I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Natalia.
Thank you, Irma, and thank you, Jason, for this. My name is Natalia Sobrevilla Perea. I'm a professor in Latin American history, and I have been working for many years on the interface of the past and what we can learn from the past for our understanding of the future. So a lot of the things that I work are on past conflicts and how they are still alive today. So if I could go to the next slide, please. So I'll talk a little bit about our future plans and what we've programmed to do throughout our time in the research theme. We want to build contacts with the researchers, and we want to be very open to what's happening in the university and widen it up. We want to be a bridge with the outside world, so that a lot of the things that we do translate with what is happening outside. As Irma mentioned, and as Jason mentioned as well, we connect with things that are current, that are happening, that are today. So this is very important to us, to be this bridge with the outside world. But also, we want to be a bridge internally across divisions and within the university, to bring in researchers that do similar things in different ways with different methodologies, very much to become a multidisciplinary platform. And this is something that is very strong in the theme. And even just by putting the theme together, we have really begun to understand a lot of what is happening internally and all the synergies that can be created. But we also want to become an umbrella for methodological and interdisciplinary innovation. We think that one of the key strengths of the theme has to do with this issue of connection of people that are currently in law, in economics, in history, in cybersecurity. So from all different kinds of places, but also psychology, many different aims that will bring together interesting ways of looking at these issues. So next slide, please. In terms of the planned activities and the structure, first we would like to let you know that we already have an interdisciplinary steering group and that will manage the theme, that we have been very keen to create a sustainable structure that is not vulnerable to collapse with the departure of a single member of staff or with a group of members of staff. We also recognize the fact that the university is facing financial challenges, and the theme is underpinned by very strong income streams from student resources. Because of recruitment, many of the members of the theme are in high recruiting undergraduate programs, and we have identified a range of modules that could support the development of the stream in human rights and humanitarianism, and this is already being advertised in the Kent Law School. But there are opportunities to make connections with history, with area studies, with cybersecurity, with economics are huge, and we want to really harness all that. There is an existing capacity for the development of new cross-disciplinary and joint honors degrees. So we also want to think about master's programs like the one in development economics and social anthropology and conflict. So we have that. But that is just one aspect. As you have in the slide, with the research, we want to generate this new knowledge through these multidisciplinary collaborations and funding applications. And I'll talk just very briefly about some of the workshops that we have planned. We have 4 one-day workshops that, due to COVID, we don't know if we will do face-to-face or we will do in a hybrid format or in an online one. There's one on insecurity and governance in the global context, which will be organized by Dr. Gavin Sullivan and Dr. Hermione Toros. Another one on human rights in question, organized by Sarah Kendall and Luis Eslava and Professor Ian Wilkinson. A third workshop on abuse, violence, and memory, organized by Professor Gordon Lynch and myself. One on poverty, conflict, and development, organized by Professors Irma Coates-Figueras and Dr. Saki Wayad. And we have a very impressive list of supporters from Professor Finola Niwola, who's a UN Special Rapporteur in counterterrorism, people from the Harvard Law School, from the Irish Center for Human Rights, from very many very important places, Truth Commissions in Latin America, ex-members of Truth Commissions. All these are people that we can bring into our theme. We also plan to have informal lunch time workshops and think a lot about public engagement, community or organizations, and provide a platform that will improve student recruitment. So we have a lot of activities planned and for the first year, and after that our steering committee will think about what we can do in the future, and very much it will be about generating research applications and large research applications that will contribute and make possible the growth of this theme. So, to the final slide, please. So I just wanted to say thank you and very much close with this image of the Beirut explosion that happened very recently, and we all think that this is something that highlights how the theme is current, very important, but also in this slide you can see how these were issues that included all the aspects of law, of economics, of history of the conflict, of cybersecurity. Everything is encapsulated by things that happened there. So thank you very much for your attention, and we hope to be in touch soon.
Thank you all very much. Now remember, if you have any questions or comments on this presentation, you can of course make those in the YouTube and Facebook live comments panels, or of course if you're a University of Kent academic who's interested in signing up to this theme, please visit research.kent.ac.uk/signature-themes, where you can register your details. When we come back, we're going to have the next presentation, Digital Culture. We'll see you very shortly. Welcome back. The next presentation will be on digital culture. Dr. Jordanis, Dr. Wills, and Dr. Miller, the floor is yours.
Hello, and welcome to the presentation of the Digital Culture Signature Research Theme. It's being presented by myself, Anna Jordanis from Computing, Vince Miller from SSP/SSR, and John Wills from History. Let's go into the presentation then with the next slide, please. Thank you. It's an understatement, isn't it, to say that the last 6 months have been a crazy and disruptive time. But the last 6 months have also shown us something. Shown us all how to go to work, go to school, how to exercise, how to shop, to attend to our families, and even go to the doctor online. And sure, some people were already doing this before COVID-19 and lockdown. But now, things like Zoom, Teams, TikTok, etc., they've all become integrated into most of our lives to a degree they never were before, and to a degree we probably never even imagined. Lockdown and social distancing have pushed us into a new way of living. So what is digital culture now? Well, now it's our work, it's the relationship with our families, it's everything. It was already happening, but in the last 6 months, digital culture has really become our culture, whether we like it or not. It's that important and that necessary to understand. So yes, we plan to build a signature research theme on the study of everything or everything digital. But our intention is to take this everything and break it up into what we see as its fundamental parts, the bits that make digital culture something different, something distinct from what went before, and the bits that Kent can claim national and even international research leadership in. If we go to the next slide, please.
The average person spends 3 hours, 15 minutes a day on their smartphone, checking it every 12 minutes, while 11% of people admit to checking their personal email constantly without break. The digital economy, meanwhile, is worth over $3 trillion, with the most successful entertainment product of all time. Not a film, not a book, but a video game, Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto 5. And as we have already said, digital culture is today's lockdown culture. We rely more than ever on Zoom and FaceTime, Twitter and Teams, to work, to socialise, to stay connected. It is more important than ever. Next slide, please.
The University of Kent has a long and distinguished history of being at the forefront of research on the digital. From Harry Bloom's pioneering work on the legal consequences of telecommunications and computers in the early 1970s, to the development of one of the UK's first LAN networks in 1978, to the enabling of Usenet access as early as 1985, Kent has long been an innovator when it comes to the digital realm. However, in recent years, Kent has developed an array of digital specialists, often working in isolation, mostly thanks to ad hoc appointments and individual research agendas. Across the humanities and social sciences, we have digital culture scholars at Kent working with little interaction with each other, and even less so with computing and the STEM sciences. So while we already have great foundations, for example, with the Kent Interdisciplinary Research Center in Cybersecurity, the Computational Research, Intelligence Research Group in Computing, biosciences work in bioinformatics and computational biology, digitally based creative work in the arts, electronic design, and architecture, including the Institute for Creative and Cultural Industries, and a large collection of social science research at Kent, which examines online content and its expressive, creative, legal, and ethical dimensions. Thus far, there has been little interschool or even cross-university research or teaching, which brings together the valuable work being done in these centers and by lone scholars. The digital culture research theme would knit together these academics from many different strands of research under one umbrella to unlock the significant potential for big ideas research and research income. The theme would be truly interdisciplinary. It already involves participation of roughly 40 academics from 13 different schools across Kent. Next slide, please. The broad aims of the theme are as follows. First, to consolidate digital-oriented research and teaching at Kent under a broad umbrella of networking and support. Secondly, to encourage and nurture interdisciplinary and interschool collaboration and big ideas research in the area of digital culture, especially in terms of linking work between the sciences and the social sciences and the humanities. And thirdly, to put Kent on the map as a leading center for digital research across a number of fields. Next slide, please. The core objectives of the theme are to, first, create a set of focused interdisciplinary sub-themes which are based on current research interests to enhance collaboration. Secondly, to generate large-scale interdisciplinary research projects and grant income. Third, to promote and foster interdisciplinary and cross-division undergraduate and postgraduate teaching on digital topics. And fourthly, to engage in public education and debate on topical matters of public interest relating to digital culture. Next slide, please. We see this theme as acting as an umbrella for a set of 5 interdisciplinary sub-themes, which we feel have major collaborative research and research funding potential at Kent. These sub-themes would foster particularly intense networking and collaboration on focused topics that speak to current research interests and are in areas of considerable potential for innovative cross-disciplinary research and funding. So the first of these, digital landscapes. This sub-theme would involve research into the construction, experience, and impact of digitized landscapes, virtual realities, and immersive experiences, bringing together scholarship related to gaming, digital humanities, and here particularly thinking about heritage and archaeological reconstruction, also digital architecture, art, and immersive media. It would bring together existing work from the digital arts, SSPSSR, history, SECL, arts and architecture, and the Institute for Creative and Cultural Industries.
Is the emotions, affect, algorithm, and online culture. If you could go back to the previous slide, please. Thank you. This sub-theme encompasses research in the influence of algorithms, even mutant algorithms, machine learning, effective computing, and conversational agents on human emotions and behavior. This would include not only the algorithms that influence our online experiences, but also the way in which human behavior becomes increasingly algorithmic through interaction with these technologies. For example, we can investigate how our awareness of algorithms in daily life affects our patterns of behavior, or how important the skill of understanding algorithms themselves has become in contemporary culture, or whether we can develop a theory of mind for an algorithm, and so on. And this would foster collaboration between SSPSSR, psychology, KBS, arts, history, and computing.
The cybercrime, abuse, and cyber warfare sub-theme would build upon the work in the UK government-recognized Kent Cybersecurity Centre and promote interdisciplinary collaboration in the areas of cybercrime, cyber warfare, online radicalism, online abuse, and vulnerability. This would bring together the technical expertise of the Cybersecurity Centre with the social science expertise of law, psychology, SSPSSR, and the Center for Child Protection. The privacy, publicity, creativity, and expression online sub-theme would focus on the relationship between the individual and technologies used to express or inhibit individuality, opinion, creativity, ethics, and vulnerability of the self within digital contexts. This would include issues of identity, privacy, regulation, responsibility, ownership, and consent regarding online content, and would particularly foster collaboration between arts, law, philosophy, digital arts, computing, SSPSSR, as well as the Cybersecurity Center, politics, psychology, and the business school.
Finally, on this slide, digitizing the human. This sub-theme would focus on the implications of making humans technological, especially in terms of the implications of humans being seen as technological, and how this may alter our understanding of what it is to be human, or what composes a human body. For example, this theme could examine the social and philosophical implications of scientific practices of datafication, or the ethical and political implications of gathering data through the use of various technologies. It can also open up research into the implications of human enhancement or atrophy as we become more intimate and integrated with technology. This final theme would assist collaboration between biosciences, computing, SSPSSR, philosophy and politics, with plenty of scope for big ideas research and public engagement. Next slide, please.
Crossing all of these themes would be 2 key issues. The first is to combine existing methodological and technological expertise in machine learning, computational social science, digital visualization, and qualitative research with current theoretical, philosophical, ethical, and creative inquiry into the digital at Kent. Secondly, we intend to influence the ethical and responsible development of new technologies, methods, and security measures, and their regulation through research dissemination, corporate and government liaison, and public engagement. Next slide, please.
Bringing people together will lead to new ideas, new research, new collaboration, and new funding. There are many potential funders and collaborators out there for the digital culture. For example, in UKRI, EPSRC have ongoing funding calls for digital economy and for discipline hopping in ICT. ESRC have a programme on digitalisation of the public sector. AHRC run ongoing programmes on digital transformations and on connected communities, as well as science and culture. The Leverhulme Trust is a good home for the kind of cross-disciplinary big ideas research we hope to support, as well as Innovate UK for those ideas with industry application. And British Academy, the Royal Society, and the Global Challenges Research Fund are also relevant research funding sources. Another intriguing source of funding is the Wellcome Trust's Hub Award. In fact, existing digital culture members already hold funded projects relevant to digital culture from funders including Innovate UK, Marie Curie, EPSRC, British Academy, Leverhulme, ERA, and with industrial partners such as the Road Safety.
Unfortunately, as I said, we're obviously all social distancing and on the line from our various homes, so we may encounter technical hitches. We are going to try and get Dr. Jordanis back on. In the meantime, Dr. Miller and Dr. Wills, are you able to take up where Dr. Jordanis left off?
Yep, sure. Do you want me to, Vince, or do you want to, Vince, for this bit?
Well, you go ahead.
Okay, that's all right. We were just moving to slide, the next slide we'll go with, please.
Yeah, that's what, no. All right, okay.
So, new research, new collaboration, and continuing on that theme, the digital culture theme allows us to respond to many one-off calls for proposals and expressions of interest by being connected together to others working in this popular area for research calls. For example, Michael Falk and Anna from computing are submitting a project proposal on digital culture in 18th century literature to the Knowledge Frontiers call by British Academy. Working on a theme proposal has already helped us find new partners and discuss new ideas. For example, we were able to respond quickly to the call for proposals for a Leverhulme Doctoral Training Centre, using the digital culture participants as a base to successfully submit a proposal that received positive feedback. While planning this presentation, Vince and Anna digressed slightly and started discussing a collaborative grant to the Leverhulme on social media contagion. During discussions, we've been able to exchange useful details of collaborators we have that other people want to collaborate with. For example, King's College London's Department of Digital Humanities. Collectively, we have an impressive range of contacts, ranging from the Home Office to Santander Bank via Interpol, MOD, Turner Contemporary, and Chatham Historic Dockyard. In the theme membership so far, we have HEI-paced external partners from across the world, in Canada, as well as in the UK, not forgetting Kent's own ICCI, with Catherine Richardson and Caroline Lee, members of the digital culture theme. Next slide, please. Teaching on digital culture at Kent is currently spread out and disconnected. Our theme will collate existing offerings and work with the new divisions to help forge exciting new modules and degree programmes at undergraduate and postgraduate level. We're currently, for example, involved in early planning of a new digital culture BA with the ICCI and the Humanities division. We will also explore the potential for a new online MA to be delivered in the near future. This would complement discussions on postgraduate teaching on cybercrime and cyber law between societal law and SSPSSR. We hope to provide a range of summer workshops on topics designed for professionals and interested students, such as digital damage, privacy in today's digital society, and digital ethics and responsibility. These might also become available as credit-based online courses. Next slide, please.
Dr. Wills, sorry to interrupt you. Just to say that we've got Dr. Jordanis back now. Dr. Jordanis, we were talking about teaching plans and modules. Sorry to interrupt your presentation. Just to see if this is somewhere you wanted to interject in, or if Dr. Wills, you want to continue.
I think it is the most beautiful description of why we need to understand the digital culture, right? We're learning. Guys, did you pick up on my slides, or should I go back to them?
No, we did this one, Anna. Yeah.
So should we
continue
then? Fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks, Anna. So we're finishing off on teaching, and we're talking about how a range of courses could become available as credit-based online courses. So the next slide, please, on outreach. Thanks. In recent months, we've hosted a talk by Dr. Poppy Wild from Birmingham City University on Red Dead Redemption, zombies and video games, with online attendees from California and Europe. We also announced 2 competitions, one for Kent undergraduates, asking them to tell lockdown stories, and the other for Kent academic staff on their research and teaching innovations during lockdown. Next slide, please. Next steps include the official creation of a home or centre for digital culture. We're currently calling this the Hive, a place where members can come together and collaborate on new research grants, teaching programmes and big ideas. Secondly, we're eager to establish the Digital Hub, designed for the public dissemination of Kent research on the digital age. This online site would bring together our work, promote news stories and further outreach. Thirdly, and most ambitiously, we want to focus on the future and on our potential as a team to influence the flow of events. We'll work together to identify new and emergent trends in digital issues and how to actively research and influence them. We call this project the Digital Stargazer. And final slide, please. Thanks. Our signature theme promises to not only bring together expertise from across the university on exciting projects and grant ideas, but also help guide us all in this fast unfolding digital society. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, team, and obviously for handling with the customary technical issue that, of course, is going to happen on the digital culture theme. So thank you all for putting up with that. Remember that if you have any questions or feedback that you want to make about the digital culture presentation, you can, of course, leave comments on the Facebook and YouTube live comments panels. And if you are a University of Kent academic and would like to sign up to this theme, you can go to the address research.kent.ac.uk/research-themes to register your details. We're going to be back shortly with the next group, Inequalities and Diversity. Don't go away. Welcome back. We've got the Inequalities and Diversity theme team on the line for you now. Dr. Tunaker, Dr. Barker and Dr. Chung, it's over to you.
Hello, my name is Hee-Jung Chung. We'll be presenting the Inequalities and Diversity signature theme. We're really happy to be here. And just to mention that we are just here to representing over 80 members of staff, both academic and professional services across 3 faculties and 7 divisions. Today we have again Karen Tunaker representing the Central University Athena Swan team, Dr. Rob Barker, who is representing the sciences for us. And we couldn't be joined because of the limitation of the cameras and the join-in with Dr. Declan Gilmore-Kavanagh, who is representing the humanities, but rest assured, humanities are very much involved and embedded in this theme. Can we go into the slides, please? Next slide, please. So who are we? So we are a group of staff interested in social inequalities. We engage in social inequalities in an intersectional manner. We understand that inequality isn't just about one issue, isn't just about race or gender, but it is intersectional across different areas: race, gender, ability, religion, age, etc. What is more, we believe that the only kind of way to understand and address these inequalities and disadvantaged groups is to ensure that diverse voices are heard and are represented. We are interested in academic vigor and high quality research, but one of the key things that brings us together is our interest in action and social change. Many of us have very key strength in this area, which we'll be talking about later. So in sum, we're a group who is interested in interdisciplinary disruption and structural change to address some of the key social inequality issues that prevail in our societies today. Next slide, please. The issue around inequality and the need for diverse voices cannot be as urgent as what we experienced in the past year. As kind of many of you know, 2020 has been a bleep year. As the COVID-19 pandemic has shown, it has kind of widened the gulf of inequalities that have already existed pre-pandemic times, with different groups of society experiencing this in a much more difficult manner. What is more, recently, with the police brutality and the murder of George Floyd, has kind of increased the awareness, but also the need to address issues such as racial injustices, not just in the police force, but also in our societies, and also to ensure that these issues are met by listening to the diverse voices that have not been heard in previous times. Next slide, please. Can we see the slide? So who are we? Again, we are a group of some of the world leading scholars in the areas of gender, race, disability, and social justice. As many of you know, we have some of the key scholars in these areas, especially Kent being one of the key leading kind of groups that have led work around gender and women's studies, but also around issues about criminal justice across different groups of disadvantages. We engage in different methodologies, both quantitative, big data, small data, qualitative data, but also we use different approaches that are used to ensure that the different diverse voices are heard, including feminist and queer methodologies. If you see our members list, you will see that we've already have an incredibly strong track record of publishing high quality research in the area, but also have a very strong record, an exceptional record of obtaining grants from the research councils, as well as other grant funders, both in the UK, but also across Europe. Many of this research has already been very interdisciplinary by nature, such as the Global Challenges Research Project, which again deals mostly to do with tackling some of the global inequalities across the world, especially in the global south, and some very interesting projects such as the Water Project, which looks at the access to water across different gender identities in India. We are also leaders in the field, so we are representing some of the key editors and key editors of journals, book series, as well as executive board members and chairs of some of the leading learned societies in the field. What is more exciting is that we already have a very strong track record of having a global reach. Many of us work with international organizations such as the World Bank and United Nations, but also work very closely with the UK government as well as government across the world, and also work with a whole range of different industry, grassroots organizations, and NGOs, which Karen will talk a bit more about. So I'll move over to Karen. Next slide, please.
Hey, Jen. So I want to talk about our proposed Kent Diversity Hub. So for this signature research theme, we propose the creation of this hub, and the idea for it grew from our theme members' direct experience of identifying needs for data analysis of current real-world problems, as well as a lack of local joining up of government strategies, academic research, and applied outcomes in the third sector. Next slide, please. The action points for the Kent Diversity Hub will be to act as a point of reference for mobilised action, both externally and internally, for all things inequality and diversity. It will be to act as a platform to engage better and systematically, which is important, with external bodies. It will also be a meeting point for us internally to engage and interact with one another across the divisions. It will be a way to involve students in our engagement. So students will have the opportunity to enhance their academic experience through the Kent Diversity Hub, through placements and projects. So, for example, we will liaise with local community members and organizations to source cases for our students to address. For example, using real data from local charities, so that students can obtain first-hand experience and using their skills in real-life cases. And we are already doing some of this work across the theme in the different divisions. And lastly, and importantly, we'll also have workshops and seminars and grant workshops to make sure that we can work collaboratively in this way, something that Rob will talk to us a little bit about later on. Next slide, please. As Hee-Jung mentioned, action and public engagement is really at the heart of this signature theme. As many of our theme members are already engaged in active work to tackle inequalities, spanning across local charities, schools, national government initiatives, and with global reach, we will make sure that transdisciplinary work can happen on all levels, which will also enable better funding opportunities. We're keen to ensure that we don't only deliver knowledge, but also empower grassroots groups to co-produce knowledge. Meeting regularly in person or most likely virtually with key stakeholders in relevant areas via the Kent Diversity Hub will make this a real possibility. Next slide, please. Inequalities and diversity is a key issue, not only in research and activism, but also for our own internal strategies and systems at Kent. This group will have the know-how to productively critique and address structural intersectional inequalities and provide a critical perspective and a point of action to tackle EDI, that's equality, diversity, and inclusion, in a meaningful way. And we are able to bring together intersectional perspectives from different groups, for example, through relevant staff networks, to bring new solutions in these very, very critical times. And we have a range of world-leading experts in these fields at Kent. And as much as we support and advise organizations and governments, locally, globally, nationally, we're also keen to support our own universities, our own communities, through these challenging times where inequalities are really persistent and ingrained. I'm going to hand over back to Hee-Jung now for the next slide, please.
So I'm just going to talk briefly about some of the key challenges that we've identified. As Catherine has said, and has also come up quite frequently throughout this morning, is that increasingly we understand that a lot of the key social challenges of today cannot be met just by the approach of one discipline. And only through the collaborative kind of perspective across the sciences, social sciences, and humanities can we really find meaningful solutions. These are some of the examples of some of the key challenges that we've identified, even during this process of talking about signatures themes. And we've, or as I said, some of us have already kind of gone off and joined the forces to tackle some of these issues. I'm just going to now hand over to Rob to talk a bit more about some of these key issues, especially from the sciences perspective.
I want to particularly tackle face on the opportunities that I think that we have for the natural sciences and for engineering to really learn and gain and be part of this signature theme. For me, this is twofold. There's firstly the opportunity to really engage with the conversation, learn with the hub. We're already involved in things like My Science Inquiry, which was a policy inquiry, went to the Science and Technology Select Committee at the Houses of Parliament to hold funding bodies to account for their diversity and their delivery of their funding. If using and integrating the Kent's Diversity Hub into that conversation would be a fantastic opportunity for us to learn from the hub and build it to the wider community. But then there's the other side. There's actually the opportunity for what science and engineering can actually do to address and start to reduce some of these social inequalities and biases. Can we, and I believe we can, develop technologies to really lead to the reduction of these things? I'll take an example of personalized medicine. Personalized medicine is an opportunity to truly reduce any kind of bias in the development of medicines that currently exist by truly delivering something unique to a person, representing everything that they require. But with all the inequalities that we've highlighted, that's already been discussed so far, and that we know for well with COVID-19 and all the other opportunities we have here, this is really an opportunity now, here today, to take advantage and build this transdisciplinary approach for what we're doing. And I truly believe as the funding model in the UK moves towards a more cross-disciplinary, transdisciplinary thing, that now is the opportunity to start doing that. Next slide, please. So how are we going to go about doing this? The first thing, because of the breadth of what we're doing from the natural sciences, engineering, social sciences, all the way through the full range of what we're looking at, we need to be able to build a shared language. And for that, we were going to build on certain things like our seminar series. We will have a series of virtual at the moment, cross-disciplinary seminars, talking about starting on our key themes and challenges, which will evolve over time, of course, as new opportunities come up through the theme. But starting with those to start focus our minds and building a shared language to really understand each other and our broad breadth of what we're talking about, in order to start thinking about how we, as a selection of leading researchers, can address some of these. And then from that, we'll start to build. We have to be able to pivot and respond quickly to opportunities that we have. So by building this community and the shared language, we will lead into sandpits, having grant workshops focused on particular themes where opportunities will present themselves and where we'll be able to consider, respond quickly to anything that's required. Beyond that, we will also be leading, and we already are. There's a number of external opportunities and workshops that we're already leading on, some our core theme events that are listed here, things like our poverty and stigma events, leading webinars on ending homelessness in Kent and Medway, a whole range of other things that we're starting to look at across in the next 2 years. In fact, this is building, and even within the time we've been developing this theme, a number of opportunities within the sciences have started to come through. We are starting to lead workshops through some of our researchers and members of the theme in building more, decolonizing our curriculum in the physical sciences, and looking more at engaging women in the sciences, particularly supermega chemistry, and some of the work done by some of our members.
To ensure, because we're such a big group, and to ensure the communication within the group as well as within Kent, and to show externally, we will provide some research profiles where we highlight some of the key interests in terms of thematic interest, as well as methodological strength, as well as some of the linkages our members have with the public engagement, may it be with organizations, and also I forgot to mention a lot of media work to ensure public engagement through changing people's behaviors and attitudes. Next slide, please. There are also some really interesting ideas that are planned. Again, as Rob said, we've already started, because it took us so long to do this presentation, we've already started kind of bouncing off ideas off of each other. But even before that, a lot of us have been working together for a decade now on various issues, including, for example, as many of you know, like 50 years of feminism activity in 2015. But we have some new programs, ideas, with such as the Gender Studies MA, or the Activism and Social Change as modules. Also developing new modules across schools as providing students with the opportunities to engage more in the topical areas, as mentioned, as well as the placement that through the Kent Diversity Hub, Karen has mentioned. Some of the future target grants, I mean, we can list this, but it's very clear that if you look at some of the grant funding that is made available these days, it is very, very much on the themes that we just mentioned, and or you cannot but escape some of these themes. And these are very, very good opportunities for us to target these opportunities that will, I think, will increase only so much, much more in the future. And these are some of the list of the grants that we've actually even recently in the past few months received around our themes through our members as well. Next slide, please. So that is it for us, the three of us, and actually, or representing the 80 of us, 80 strong members. I hope many of you will find this theme interesting and join us, because we will continue to do this work regardless of what happens.
Much. And remember, if you have any constructive questions or feedback, to leave them in our YouTube and Facebook comments panel. They'll be very helpful when the Signature Research Themes Task Group deliberate on their decision later on. If you want to sign up to this theme, you can go to research.kent.ac.uk/research-themes, where you'll need to put in your details. We're just over halfway through the presentations, and when we come back, we're going to have On Time, Heritage, Technologies and Futures. So see you for that very shortly. On Time, Heritage, Technologies and Futures is the next presentation. I'm going to hand over to the next group consisting of Dr. Lyon, Dr. Forbes and Professor Smith. Handing over to you now. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this presentation. My name is Dawn Lyon, a reader in sociology in the School of Social Policy, Sociology and Social Research. I'm going to start us off, then hand over to my colleagues, Michael and Graham. I just, first of all, though, want to recognise that this is a collaborative effort and recognise the contribution of the other members of this theme. Next slide, please. Thank you. This signature research theme selection event has certainly been a long time coming. It's been marked by disruption and delay, twice postponed, as Tim mentioned earlier, and has taken considerable temporal labour to get here, wherever here is, today. It's involved people clearing their diaries, making time in their calendars, and perhaps experiencing different kinds of time pressures as a result. And now it's required these technologies to render us live in the present. So the micro-temporal politics of today's events are relevant at much larger scales too, which show the importance of recognising different ways of living in time and how they rub up against one another. Next slide, please. If we wanted to find a global example, we don't have to look far, unfortunately. COVID-19 has changed time as we know it in both ordinary and extraordinary ways. In the national lockdown, there were different experiences of time, days that seemed to bleed into one another, supermarket slots and queues, claps for carers, all of which reconfigured previous daily and weekly rhythms. Some people's lives were slowed and suspended in time. They might have been waiting for care, for food, or for the days to pass. And for those that we now recognise as key workers, everyday routines accelerated and intensified, often to a frenzied pace. At the same time, at a different scale, the estimates of the speed of the virus and legal and political strategies of containment and delay informed new spatial and temporal regulations and experiences in everyday life. Time is central to the unfolding of the pandemic, as I hope you'll see and agree, and this is explored in a new project that's a collaboration between scholars at Kent, Goldsmiths, Edinburgh, Stirling and the Mass Observation Archive. And it asks how people are making and remaking time. What are the infrastructures, technologies and regulations that matter in people's experience of time of the pandemic? And what research methods can best capture all of this? Next slide, please. The gig economy is another example, and one that's become especially relevant during the pandemic as gig work has been very prominent. Consumption via Uber Eats or Deliveroo is characterised by a new immediacy, a present that requires little future planning for the consumer, but extensive future-oriented technological and organisational infrastructure, which shapes possible futures. Ironically, alongside forms of labour that include 0 hours contracts that reduce the future to a small present. In a further paradox, there's the speed of algorithmic technologies is accompanied by a sense of impatience of waiting for that dinner to arrive. It's strange how the distant and proximate future colonises the present, such that lives are structured by the next thing. But if speed is of the essence for gig workers, more generally it might be remodelling the temporal frames we live by, for instance in the use of algorithms across different sectors, healthcare and financial markets, for instance. These kinds of questions, and those on the slide, informed our Leverhulme doctoral scholarships proposal, New Work, Old Work. And despite not being successful this time around, we're confident these ideas will underpin future applications too, and they already inform our education at undergraduate and postgraduate levels. Next slide, please. A signature research theme, On Time, offers what we think of as a platform for new thinking about what time is and what it does, and for rethinking existing topics in novel ways. Our focus on time is uniquely interdisciplinary as a route to capture existing potential and enhance capacity at Kent, to ask questions which address intellectually and politically urgent issues. And as we've heard COVID-19 is central in that. It will stimulate the convergence of projects in and on time and a step change in the range and ambition of our research. And a key strength of this theme is its inherent breadth, its open-endedness, which promise relevance and longevity. I'll hand over to Michael here.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Yes, time has so many different meanings for all of us in our own personal lives as well as in our research. And perhaps it's no more so when we divide it, and the divisions, of course, the classical divisions would be the past, the present, and the future, with the future flowing into the present, into the past as I talk, of course. And in Kent, we have a lot of work, a lot of research being done already in terms of heritage for the past and preservation for the future. And Kent offers this because we have the expertise in these areas. Yet we haven't really explored more than a few of these areas. For example, artworks and artifacts, ships, cathedrals, but there is a lot more there and a lot more that we need to do. And the reason for this is that it involves three areas. We first need to decide why preserve, then we need to decide what to preserve, and then we need to decide how to preserve. And this what brings us all together, from the culture, the arts, and the sciences all come together. And this is what I would really like to touch upon on these slides. And move to the next slide, please. Because we have this, next slide, yeah, thank you. Because we have this great potential here, and the crucial point is that what we do have is completely distributed through the university. We've got this really untapped potential that we should be bringing together to really create the energy we need, the potential energy to create new areas of research. So these are completely new areas of research, not those which are already here today. Next slide, please. And as you can see here, we have an enormous number of people interested in time from all these different aspects, with their different issues, different ways of looking at time. And by bringing these people together, we're going to create completely new areas of research. And next slide, please. And this is what we are doing already in terms of pharmacy with music. Through our discussions, we're already creating there our daily rhythms, our circadian rhythms. We are connecting that to how we perceive different sounds and different pieces of music through the day. These are completely unconnected areas which were coming together simply because we are talking. So these are totally new projects. There's also the other one I wanted to talk about was between higher education and chemistry and women in science. And this is with the Apex projects already received funding. So we are really creating totally new, almost like spin-offs through bringing together people talking about different aspects of time. In my own research, as you can see here, it looks like an electrocardiogram. And you can analyze that to see if the rhythm has changed, but it's not an electrocardiogram. It's actually the light from a very distant quasar and how that is changing with time. So you can use the same analytical tools for such to analyze these two completely different phenomena. It's quite amazing what collaborations we might get out of this. And for my own personal research, I didn't really know, for me as a scientist, time was a fixed framework from the Big Bang onwards. And Graham has shown me, I didn't know Graham existed until this project started. And Graham has shown me that no, time is just a model for something. It is not this fixed framework. And I think I'll hand over to Graham to tell you more about what's going on. Thank you, Graham.
Forbes, of time and head of the philosophy department. And yes, I've been fascinated by the relationship between what scientists get up to and what those in the humanities and social sciences get up to. So we look at popular science. It's really got a grip on the public. We've got books by Stephen Hawking and Carlo Rovelli saying that time is an illusion or that we're wrong about time. We've got blockbuster movies like the recently out Tenet that messes with the arrow of time. People are fascinated by this, and they're fascinated by going from the physics to kind of big stories about our place in the universe. I'd really hoped that I would be telling you about a conference that I had planned for June, where I was going to get theoretical physicists, metaphysicians, and ethicists really talking about how we go from the science to these big stories about our place in the universe. But one thing I do want to tell you about is how difficult it is to get that right. So one of the exciting things about our strategic research theme for me is we have a chance to do some really difficult interdisciplinary work by tapping the potential that Michael was talking about. So if you're going to do interdisciplinary work, it's not just that you need a bunch of experts in a bunch of different areas. We've already got that. What we need is a way of talking to each other. And so that's going to involve coming up with new ways of doing things. So we're not talking past each other. We're building on the assets of our disciplines rather than talking at cross purposes constantly. So we've got a number of ways of doing that, including interdisciplinary workshops like the one that I had planned, a seminar series, methodological exchanges, horizon scanning with research cafes and workshops, a matchmaking peer support group for grant applications. So when we're thinking about what grants to apply for, we're really getting the benefits of interdisciplinary expertise at that stage. So to some extent, if you're looking for what are you going to do with this strategic research theme, I can't yet answer you, because what we're going to do is create the conversations that allow us to even imagine some of the exciting possibilities that we can do. Next slide, please. So, as I said, this is an area that the public is fascinated by. We've got scope for a huge amount of public engagement. So, for example, the award-winning theatre show Birth, which I consulted on as a philosopher of time, should be coming to the Gulbenkian when that reopens. We've got a festival on Ridley Walker, which is a sci-fi novel set in Kent in a dystopian future. We've also got the 850th anniversary of Thomas Beckett's martyrdom. These are all fantastic opportunities for public engagement that we have planned. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've got these big ambitions to have a festival of time, to have public engagement in various ways, to have big interdisciplinary projects. How are we going to get that to work? Well, firstly, let's think about the structure. So we're going to have a team lead. You've already met her, that's Dawn, and 2 to 3 associates who are going to represent the different areas of the university to make sure that this is a interdisciplinary collaboration. We're then going to make use of our various external networks and expertise within the university to get an advisory board around that central leadership team, and then the wider membership and the university community and local community within that. So we're going to be within the university governance structure, but really tapping into this distributed expertise that we have. We're also going to think about the way that we're working. So we're going to really emphasize transparency, collaboration, and accountability. So we'll decide where to put our resources based on agreement within the wider membership, led by our membership team. By our leadership team. So what we're essentially presenting is a platform for doing research across the university, rather than some specific project that we already have in train that we want more recognition for. We're going to be getting a new angle on how to think about a range of projects by thinking about them as ones that essentially involve a temporal dimension. The great whirligig of time has its revenges. Next slide, please. We're at the end of the project, but I want to leave you with the thought that there's just an immense amount of untapped potential here, and it's a very exciting time to be thinking about heritage, futures, and technologies at the University of Kent. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the On Time team. Remember, if you want to send in your questions or comments, you can do so on Facebook and YouTube, and those will be collated at the end of the event. And if you're a University of Kent academic that would like to sign up to the On Time theme or to any of the other themes that are being presented today, please visit research.kent.ac.uk/signature-themes, where you can register your details. And when we come back, we're going to have Future Human, the group, to do their presentation. So we'll see you in a few moments' time. Doctors Morgan, Hotham and Professor Wood join on the line now to talk about their presentation, Future Human. I will let you take it away.
Thank you and good morning. For the next 15 minutes, Ailish, Sarah and I are going to present an overview of the signature theme, Future Human. Now, we've been asked to pitch this theme to those in the audience who haven't been part of the assessment process. So we're making the assumption that this may be the first time you've seen any detail regarding this theme. On to the cover slide, please. So I'd like to say, firstly, that we're presenting something very ambitious and we're looking to do things quite differently to existing university structures. Secondly, we truly believe that this theme is multidisciplinary and can engage with all divisions, schools and centres at the university at some level. We ask you to keep an open mind and we hope you enjoy the presentation. Next slide, please. Now, the overarching concept of Future Human is all research relating to the use of science and technology for human enhancement. We define enhancement or augmentation as any intervention which restores or improves human performance, thereby overcoming the current limits of one's body or mind. Now, discussions in this area usually focus on pushing the boundaries of performance for the elite, but crucially, it also includes restoration of impaired function to previous or average levels. Typically, this may involve the use of technology, engineering or pharmacology to enhance human functions, such as mobility, memory or strength. The synergies between the different science and technology disciplines of these methods of enhancement are fairly clear, but this theme goes much further than that because it also considers how human enhancement may change the world in which we live. Next slide, please. This broadens the scope and adds a richness that would otherwise be missed. Take the example of a strength-enhancing prosthetic limb or a drug that boosts cognitive function. Consider their legal implications. How would they be regulated? How might it change productivity or affect the way we perceive each other? By taking a holistic approach to these questions, we're able to engage meaningfully with many different disciplines. Next slide, please. When designing Future Human, there were several key intellectual areas which form the foundations for understanding the science and technology of human enhancement and the societal impact it might have. These foundations are shown on the slide here, which also highlight some areas of academic interest that fall within these foundations. Next slide, please. However, in this structure, there would have been a danger that each individual discipline would form a sub-theme which to a degree already exists in the university, and so would continue to operate in an intellectual silo. Therefore, there was a need for a different common language or understanding. Next slide, please. So to break this discipline-specific silo, we propose a sub-theme structure to Future Human, which focuses on the impact of human enhancement on different areas of life. As shown here, the 4 sub-themes comprise of the healthy human, the everyday human, the working human, and the superhuman. The main focus of the healthy human is augmentation that can support us in maintaining a healthy lifestyle or to treat or manage clinical conditions, and how this may change the future of healthcare. Such interventions might change the way clinicians communicate with patients or improve access to hard-to-reach populations. Techniques to improve adherence to clinician guidance could be integrated into the technology, or novel treatments, such as narrative medicine, could be facilitated with extended reality. The everyday human focuses on enhancement and augmentation for the everyday lives of the normal person and the wider societal impact of this. The scope here is broad, and out of all of the sub-themes, has perhaps the most potential to establish cross-discipline collaboration. Examples to build on from within Kent might be Rob Barker's Optimizing Me project on implantable technology to optimize human biochemical synthesis of drugs, or our perception of what it means to be human and how this is represented by the media, combining areas of work from Vibar, Craig and Reed, Sakis Popos, and the Aesthetics Research Centre. The working human considers the future of work in the light of human augmentation and how this might impact people in organisations. As technology takes over human jobs, there are many questions which remain unanswered, which will be essential in the fields of business studies, sociology, human resource management, operations research, political science, and economics. The big questions will be, what will happen to people in organisations? How will they interact with technology? And will this lead to greater inequality? Finally, the superhuman is about identifying our human limits and what they are, and understanding the implications of extending these further. Elite performers help us to understand the limits of the human body and mind, so augmenting these individuals has the potential to create superhumans and push boundaries towards the next developmental leap. But if these enhancement technologies are only available for some, it could lead to a more divided society. Academic input from a broad base, public voice, and an early approach to assessing ethical concerns and regulation helps balance these risks and establishes cross-disciplinarity for this sub-theme. Next slide, please. Now, the university now includes 6 academic divisions and some 40 centres for research. We didn't want to copy the existing structure of a research centre, which usually includes a number of named academics, often from just a couple of schools. Indeed, the scope and breadth of Future Human is so different, this would probably be impossible anyway. Next slide, please. Instead, Future Human will work as a virtual network for an undefined and dynamic number of academics, originating from any school, with the flexibility to engage freely with what the theme offers. We want the focus to be on the academic, not the structure, and we think we can best serve the academic by identifying a commonality through which conversations about collaborative activity can be framed. The day-to-day business of Future Human, then, will be about facilitating communication, building teams, and supporting ambitious research activity. Now, as I've alluded to, science, technology, and business are perhaps more overt in Future Human, but humanities is a fundamental aspect which is perhaps less easily envisaged. So Ailish is now going to talk through some examples of where humanities forms a basis for Future Human projects.
Thanks, Lex. I'm now going to talk briefly about humanities research at the University of Kent, which has potential to engage with the theme strands of Future Human. Next slide. Take, for instance, the Healthy Human strand, which focuses on building exercise communities. Humanities offers avenues for gaining more insight into the well-being gained through the physical and emotional activity of performance. Conversations and collaboration might emerge with colleagues in the Division of Arts and Humanities, with expertise in using dance to enhance well-being in older people. There are research projects too that focus on understanding the relations between music and psychology. Each of these places an emphasis on healthy minds and bodies. Other research includes dance and performance to understand and enhance feelings of embodiment, which might feed into research on the shared experience of exercise communities. We have exercised too on the joy of running as a very human experience. And each of these approaches to exercise have the potential to add further dimensions to collaborative projects within the healthy human strand of Future Human. Next slide. The theme strand of Everyday Human and the impact of technology on perception is partly framed around virtual and immersive experience as an example of how technologies augment bodily experiences. Again, there is a range of relevant expertise in the division of arts and humanities with potential to contribute to research project in the Everyday Human strand. These include existing intersections between aesthetics and the psychology of perception from the perspectives of art and philosophy. Other research includes the creation of virtual reality imagery and digital architectures, both of which have the potential to be part of the collaborative creation of immersive environments. There are several researchers looking at the way technologies modify cultural engagement with moving images and sound across a range of media types, such as films, games, and virtual environments. From the perspectives of audience experiences, software toolsets, and its impact on the style of imagery experienced by a user. Researchers within the division of arts and humanities, then, encompass a number of complementary approaches to human engagement with exercise and their experiences of technological environments. Having their research insights as part of the mix of Future Human collaborations will bring value to the development of many projects. I hand you now over to Sarah.
Thank you, Ailish. Next slide, please. So we recognise the importance of embedding patient and public involvement and engagement throughout the work of Future Human theme to ensure our research is relevant. Across the interdisciplinary team, we have a strong track record of collaborating with patients and public using a wide range of methods to inform our research and enterprise activities, our teaching, and the delivering of outreach events. Examples of how we have involved patients and public come across all the disciplines in the Future Human theme, and I'll highlight just 3 of these now. So from the School of Sports and Exercise Sciences, in work funded by the Royal Society, academics in that school shared their knowledge and expertise with school students to design their own research projects, and this culminated in a conference that was held in Medway. In the Centre for Health Services Studies, which is the research unit where I'm based, we have a vast experience of involving patients and public in all parts of the research cycle, from collaborating with patients to identify priority research questions and outcomes, to them being co-investigators on bids, and becoming citizen researchers alongside us to collect the data that we need. These approaches ensure all the health and social care research we undertake is both important and relevant to the communities we work with. And finally, colleagues in arts and humanities regularly collaborate with community groups, museums and galleries to co-organise performances and festivals in the local area. So the sum of this knowledge and experience that we have in our group will ensure that patients and public are placed in the very centre of all the research undertaken by the Future Human theme. So have next slide, please. So should we be selected, what would our first steps be to ensure we embed public and patient involvement within the theme? So first, colleagues within the theme have established strong networks and contacts already from the work and research that we do. So this will make it easy to engage a wide variety of stakeholders, from health and social care, from industry, from clinical commissioning groups and NHS trusts, from the voluntary sector. So if the research that we do, we'll be able to pull on those networks quite quickly. And that's important because one of the first steps we want to do is to invite these stakeholders to a consensus workshop and whether that will be virtual or maybe hopefully in person, we don't know. But these consensus workshops will be there to prioritise the research questions and outcomes that the theme should undertake, and that will be pulled in from all these different stakeholders. And then alongside that, we would like to establish a public advisory group that will provide continuous input into the work of the theme. So if I could hand over back to Lex. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Sarah. So the question now is, how do we make all of this work? Now, I've already said that Future Human isn't designed to be another research centre. Its scope and purpose is different, and so it should be resourced differently. At least for the short to medium term, Future Human would need to receive central university capital investment, which may come from a variety of sources. Most important, however, is the academic time to run the theme, and this needs to be recognised appropriately too. The annual investment would go towards events designed to build research activity and incentives to promote academic engagement. From the investment, the university would increase grant income arising from stimulation of research collaboration, in addition to the softer returns relating to the research environment and capacity building. It's a different way of working, and it's going to require a leap of faith. But our brief was to be ambitious and to do things differently. This is our vision for how Future Human could be most beneficial. Next slide, please. Now, we've already said that we don't think Future Human could work using a research centre financial model, and no signature theme is going to be financially self-sufficient for at least a year or two. So we're taking the opportunity now to provide a quick example for how we would generate a financial return. So Future Human may host an event which brings together a number of academics from 4 divisions, and this leads to this group winning a large grant application. Now, rather than the money from this grant buying the academics into Future Human, the funding would stay with the academics divisions. In this way, divisions are not in competition with Future Human for research funding. Instead, it's in the division's interests to make use of a research environment provided by Future Human, because any success from it is returned directly to the division. This is an example of how we see Future Human working in practice, but we would like the opportunity to discuss resource requirements in detail with the panel. And on to the final slide, please. So to round off, we've presented an ambitious vision which is different to existing structures in the university. To help clarify what this looks like, I'll leave you with final summary slide, and thank you for listening, and we look forward to answering any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And of course, if you have any questions or feedback on the Future Human theme, you can leave those on Facebook and YouTube in the live comments panels, and those will get answered at a later date. And if you are a University of Kent academic and want to sign up to this theme, you can go to research.kent.ac.uk/signature-themes, where you can register your details. When we come back, we'll have artificial intelligence as the next theme. We'll see you shortly. Professor Wood has stayed around for the next presentation, which is on artificial intelligence. She's joined by Per Laleng and Professor Peter Rogers, who I'm going to hand over to now.
Hello, I'm Ailish Wood, the Humanities Lead for the AI and Public Interest theme. Could I have the first slide, please? Our signature theme is ambitious in its core aim to be at the forefront of the global development of responsible and controllable AI. We are excited to bring true interdisciplinarity to our goal of generating innovative solutions to contemporary societal problems. Our proposal outlines a range of newly conceived projects across the areas of health and well-being, ethical, legal, social and environmental implications of AI, creative machines, and communicating with and through AI. Now, our projects build from research expertise at Kent, reaching out to the opportunity for working together in interdisciplinary teams. I describe these projects as truly interdisciplinary because they offer great opportunities for bringing people into dialogue. With members of the team now located across 13 departments, so computing, electronic and digital arts, philosophy, English language and linguistics, history, arts, English, architecture, law, psychology, business studies, and the Centre of Health Service Studies with interest from a group in physics, our ambition to generate innovative research is grounded in a wealth of interdisciplinary expertise. New slide. The University of Kent was founded not only on an interdisciplinary focus, but also on critical thinking. A phrase more usually associated with humanities and the social sciences, critical thinking lies at the heart of all our projects. To be at the forefront of responsible and controllable AI requires us to fully interrogate the bias of existing AI, machine, and deep learning. Now consider the following example. It's frivolous, I know, but let's just go with it. I'm sure many of you will have at least heard of the Marvel films and the Avengers. Now, new slide. A headline declared, AI gives Thanos a soul in Avengers Infinity War. Now, of course, the headline is eye-catching and tongue-in-cheek, but it is also revealing, especially if we extrapolate out to wider societal issues. New slide. For instance, can an AI system be trained to recognize emotions? How does it manage different facial shapes and skin tones, some of which map onto differences in race and ethnicities? How do we minimize bias when training AI and bringing together a data training set? And there are also ethical and legal questions. Whose responsibility is it, for instance, when an AI system misrecognizes emotions and leads to somebody being, say, arrested or prevented from accessing the vital information they need? Is it the fault of the AI or its human users? Which in turn opens up concerns about how humans and AI interact. Finally, we can think too about cultural perspectives. The idea that AI can give anyone a soul, of course, exaggerates its capacities, but this exaggeration is a common problem in perceptions of AI. AI, in this example of mapping, doesn't know how to recognize emotions. It is simply making correlations without understanding. It doesn't have the wider knowledge of what an emotion is, and yet such an ability is claimed on its behalf. So, through my Thanos example, we can see how science, social science, and humanities can intersect in designing and interrogating AI, and also how we can use popular culture as a way into opening out to a wider public the complex questions that motivate our signature theme team. I hand you over now to Per Laleng.
Yes, thank you, Ailish. So my name is Per Laleng. I'm a lecturer in the law school, and I'm the social sciences lead. On the 1st of March 2020, you may recall that the Observer published an article by John Norton It was an article about a newly discovered antibiotic, halicin. The HAL in halicin is, of course, slide please, a reference to the eponymous supercomputer HAL 9000 in 2001 Space Odyssey. In many ways, halicin, rather than HAL, represents what this signature theme is all about. Norton quotes and reminds us of the first of Melvin Kranzenberg's 6 laws of technology. That first law states, slide please, technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral. A good way to understand this law is to recast it as a question or two. First, who benefits the most from any proposed or hyped technology? And second, by implication, who loses the most? Now, artificial intelligence is arguably the most hyped technologies of our age. The hype lies on a continuum from dystopian pessimism to utopian optimism. Who then benefits or loses from this technology? A popular form of AI technology is machine learning. Anyone with the right technical skills and free software can do machine learning from their bedroom. But not many people do this. This is because whilst computer skills are a necessary condition for doing machine learning, they are insufficient. Technical computer skills are insufficient because the bedroom-based machine learning enthusiast doesn't have access to the huge amounts of data necessary to train the algorithms. As a result, to answer the first revised Kranzenberg question, who benefits, a small number of well-known tech giants do. In Norton's words, AI and machine learning are making tech giants the most profitable enterprises in the history of capitalism. Slide, please. As a consequence, a powerful technology with great potential for good is at the moment deployed mainly for privatized gain. In the process, it has been characterized by unregulated premature deployment, algorithmic bias, reinforcing inequality, undermining the democratic process, and boosting covert surveillance to toxic levels. Here we see some of the losers, and you will also note some of the themes within our theme. That it doesn't have to be like this was vividly demonstrated by the halicin project, which harnessed machine learning in the public interest. Slide, please. In that project, a team of MIT and Harvard researchers used machine learning to identify molecules which might be effective against E. coli. The technology identified 100 potential contenders from a dataset of 2,335 molecules for further testing, and one, the said halicin molecule, was found to be effective against a number of pathogens, including 2 which are totally resistant to current antibiotics. The public interest in this discovery is, I hope, obvious. The point of this story is that it evidences how AI can eclipse the profit motive of private companies and the political interests of authoritarian governments, and can, in fact, benefit humanity. This is AI in the public interest. Whilst AI promises many benefits, it is not risk-free. Take just one example, self-driving cars. They promise to significantly reduce death and injury on our roads. This is because the vast majority of accidents are caused by human error. Self-driving cars may also allow greater mobility for the old or the disabled. But the social and environmental risks of self-driving cars are far from clear. What will happen to taxi and lorry drivers? Slide, please. What sort of carbon footprint will data-crunching self-driving cars leave behind? Can self-driving cars become weaponized by cyber hackers? Can self-driving cars designed for UK roads safely navigate French roads? Will self-driving cars spell the end of private car ownership? And if so, is that in the public interest? Rapid advances in autonomous intelligence give rise to difficult interdisciplinary questions about what is in the public interest. These questions and the regulatory challenges they raise cannot be left to powerful private companies or authoritarian governments alone. If we want artificial intelligence that augments human intelligence, then it is in our interest to ensure it is truly robust and beneficial. And with that, I'd like to thank you for listening and hand over to Peter, please.
Thanks, Bert. I'm Peter Rogers, the science lead for this particular signature theme. Next slide, please. The Asian hornet is an invasive species that is devastating pollinators, particularly bees. It is firmly established in France, and nests are now being found in southern England. It's a DEFRA priority to find these nests and destroy them. Of course, before destroying the nests, we need to find the insects. Human observation is patchy and time-consuming. However, researchers in the School of Computing have, with master's students, produced a cheap AI-based image recognition device that automatically identifies the Asian hornet. Hence, this AI technology can help prevent the spread of this invasive insect in the UK. Other examples of work at Kent in AI. Next slide, please. Ryoko von Jungenfeld from Engineering Digital Arts, in collaboration with Edinburgh, won the Lumens British Computer Society Prize for creating art with AI. Next slide, please. Researchers in computing and sports and exercise sciences are developing AI health diagnostic methods using data from in-shoe sensors. Computing, bioscience and pharmacy are using AI to identify genes related to aging, and engineering and digital arts are developing navigation assistance for wheelchairs using AI. Next slide, please. The AI research at Kent is already wide-ranging. It's highly interdisciplinary and focuses on the public interest. However, it is not well integrated, and we see greater opportunities. For example, there's potential for developing AI regulation in the departments of law and politics and international relations. There's opportunities for seeing the long view of new technology with history and English. And as we noted before, and most importantly with AI, there are ethical issues around AI, and these are squarely in the capabilities of philosophy and psychology. In addition, new initiatives at Kent provide timely motivation to support the signature theme. The Institute for Creative and Cultural Industries and the Medical School both have very strong connections to AI and therefore have a good link to this particular theme. I'd like now to pass back to Eilish to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Per and Peter. So following on from Peter's point that research into AI is somewhat dispersed, I want to finish by briefly outlining our activities for bringing researchers together. Next slide, please. Now, I know this slide breaks all sensible rules for slide content, and I'm not expecting you to read it, but I include all the activities so that you can see we have a detailed plan. Our strategy is to consolidate and expand in each year to build a wider base from which to consolidate and expand again in the following year. In year one, we plan to consolidate through developing the provisional proposals outlined in our application into feasible and fundable collaborative projects. This will enable us to provide ECR support and development too. By enhancing our profile across the university and beyond, we aim to also expand the numbers of participants in the signature theme. In year two, while continuing to use focused sandpits, workshops, seminars, conference events to share our ideas, our focus will be on adding to our existing external partners to enhance our national and international reach. Year two will also see the start of collaborative PhD projects, and we will aim to make a bid to doctoral schemes if they come up. In year three, we will continue these activities, move projects forward and shape new ones, while also increasing our capacity for innovation through seeking to extend research outcomes to products and services. I will also briefly outline our public engagement ideas. Next slide. Our public engagement strategy falls into two strands: to enhance public trust by expanding their knowledge of how AI work, and also draw insights from public perspectives on AI on society. Though we will likely need to rethink the logistics of events to be COVID secure, our aim to enhance public trust will be met through a range of activities: schools outreach involving workshops on coding and ethics, a blog, public lectures and participation in science fairs, and also the introduction of an AI fact-check service where people can report AI systems they think are problematic. To draw insights from public perspectives, we will run debates using popular culture and familiar embedded AI systems to engage people in discussions about ethics and transparency, human oversight of AI, frameworks for legal responsibilities and regulations. We anticipate that these debates will feed back into our thinking about research. Finally, as I hope you've seen from our presentation, next slide, we see great opportunities for this institution to support AI in the public interest. Bringing together Kent's unique set of interdisciplinary researchers would allow these opportunities to be realised. Thank you for listening.
And thank you very much for the AI signature theme presentation. We've been getting in plenty of questions and comments on YouTube and Facebook, and you can, of course, keep sending those in the live comments panels. research.kent.ac.uk/signature-themes is where you can go to if you want to sign up for this theme or to find out more about those behind it. When we come back, we'll have our final presentation, Migration and Movement. We'll see you for that in just a few minutes' time. Welcome back for the final presentation, which will be on migration and movement. Dr. Rajan Rankin and Professors Hurd and Professor McRae join us on the line, so I'm going to let you all take it away.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you very much to everybody who has logged in to watch. You should now be looking at a sea wall in Margate, the first slide. What the graffiti articulates with its expression of welcome and its active refusal is that migration and movement is one of the defining themes, perhaps the defining theme of our time. What the graffiti also reminds us, if we need reminding, is that migration and movement is one of the defining themes of our region. The significance of the theme to the region is made plain by small boats containing migrants coming across the channel. That regional interest is apparent to members of our research theme network through the work many of us do with local NGOs and with people with lived experience of migration. My name is David Hurd. I'm speaking on behalf of arts and humanities colleagues in the Migration and Movement Research Theme Network. Rachel McRae will speak on behalf of colleagues in sciences. Sweta Rajan Rankin will speak on behalf of colleagues in social sciences. There is no question, as the first slide reminds us, that for Kent as a region, migration and movement is a defining theme. But why the University of Kent? Next slide, please. There are a number of very strong centres of migration studies in the UK. For example, Compass at Oxford. Those centres tend to be rooted in the social sciences and, as the discourse driven by social sciences tends now to recognise, rooted in categories of person and movement that shape existing asylum and immigration regimes. For the past 2 years, the migration and movement That uniqueness, which derives from long-standing experience at Kent, derives in part from the fact that the network's research around migration is informed by established projects in the humanities quite as much as by work in other fields, by projects grounded in stories and in histories, such as David Stirrup's AHRC-funded project, Beyond the Spectacle. Crucially, however, our network sets migration in relation to other questions of movement. Early in our discussion, colleagues in biosciences told us we should consider the movement of pathogens. That now seems all too pressing. Through the work of Amanda Klekowski von Koppenfels, we addressed the range of categories of mobile people. Through the work of colleagues in English and history and through such projects as the European Joint Doctorate MOVES, we consider migration and movement as an enduring theme that requires careful historical contextualization. Next slide, please. Chris Constantine's projection here reminds us that any serious reimagining of migration and movement calls for artistic interventions. Next year, via the Refugee Tales project, the Migration and Movement Network will bring a project called The Walk to the University of Kent. The Walk is the journey of a 9-year-old refugee puppet girl called Amal across Europe. Constructed by the makers of Warhorse, Amal will travel from Gaziantep in Turkey to Manchester in the UK. She will be welcomed on the White Cliffs of Dover by members of the Migration and Movement Network and will be hosted at the Gulbenkian Theatre. Kent is the only university in the UK to play this role, and the event will constitute a very significant arts intervention. Next slide, please. In order to advance the new vocabulary necessary to a broad understanding of migration and movement, the network has already undertaken an interdisciplinary glossary of concepts. This is being developed in partnerships with colleagues at the University of Oslo. Other international partnerships include well-developed collaborations with universities of Milan, Chemnitz, Prague, Porto, Simon Fraser University, Middlebury College, and the Keenan Institute for Ethics at Duke University. Next slide, please. While developing and consolidating international collaborations, the Migration and Movement Network will also explore the complex migration histories that constitute the region. Consider, for example, pilgrims who passed through the Eastbridge Hospital in Canterbury, where it was written into the institution's covenant that nobody in need of hospitality could be turned away. Or the Kitchener camp at Sandwich for Jewish refugees. Or the cathedral's memorial to one of many men from Kent who went to India with the East India Company. One of our planned public engagement projects is a local guided tour integrating multi-layered stories of migration. How would someone from the Roma community working on the Dover Red Zebra immunization project imagine the experience of a Huguenot refugee landing in Dover in the 17th century? How would one of our Article 26 students retell the story of the local Black activist William Cuffey, who lived in the Medway towns in the late 18th century and was deported to Tasmania? Next. The fact that migration and movement is a defining theme of our moment means that it calls for a genuinely interdisciplinary approach. To enable this, we have developed a network that is active in and across all the schools and faculties listed. The direct result of that active networking was the university's 2020 Leverhulme Doctoral Scholarships application, valued at £1.35 million. Titled Hostile Environments and Intimate Lives, that application was led jointly by Arts, Humanities and Social Sciences and drew directly on the energies of the Migration and Movement Network. The application was selected through a university-wide competition that consisted of 7 cross-faculty proposals. In other words, the Migration and Movement Network has already demonstrated the capacity to generate and coordinate large interdisciplinary applications. Next. Our strategy is therefore fourfold. We will regionalise through long-standing connections with non-HEIs and especially NGOs in Kent. We will internationalise through our existing global networks. We will amplify by providing a platform for the already strong work we do in the field. We will secure large-scale funding through the interdisciplinary connections we have already made. Next. This slide documents the work we have already done, despite institutional transition and COVID isolation, along with the work already scheduled for the coming year. In the past 5 years, members of the Migration and Movement Network have generated over £6 million in research income. Since April, colleagues building on the infrastructure already developed by the emerging network have worked on 3 1 million plus cross-disciplinary applications, including the LDS application, the ESRC Centre application, the AHRC bid towards a national collection. This level of grant activity demonstrates the potential of the Migration and Movement Research Theme Network to raise substantial research funding. We now need the standing and infrastructure that would come of signature research theme status to reach the next exciting stage. To indicate the work SRT status will enable, Rachel will now speak on behalf of science colleagues in the network, to be followed by Sweta, who will speak on behalf of colleagues in social science. Next.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to talk on behalf of the scientists involved with this signature research theme. The signature research theme call challenged members of the university community to establish how to really integrate social sciences, humanities, and science researchers. This aim fits in well with current research funding calls, for example, from the British Academy, to bring together experience, storytelling, evidence, modelling, and data science. The migration theme has achieved something exceptional. This is not bland interdisciplinarity, but a cohesion of disciplines to take advantage of everyone's expertise. The Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy has identified mobility as one of its 4 grand challenges. Therefore, there is much this signature research theme can address. There are already many areas of interdisciplinary research which are gaining traction within this theme. Some of this research already directly impacts government decision-making, with artificial intelligence and biometrics research feeding into the Home Office. The examples given on the slide are just a snapshot of some of the many discussions and cross-faculty projects already underway within the theme. Next slide, please. The Overseas Development Institute report on Sustainable Development Goals highlighted the importance of technology in migration. Thus, external agencies see the same issues as us, in that disciplines need to work together to create innovative solutions. Many different methods, algorithms, and analytical techniques are used in different scientific areas, but we need to better cross-fertilization of such ideas and approaches across disciplines. Next slide, please. Importantly, this is not a one-way interaction. Scientists need to learn from other faculties how to get the best out of our systems. For example, in order to bring in new technologies, it is critical to understand the ethical and human factors which need to be addressed. This conversation between disciplines is something that is already thriving within this theme. Multidisciplinary team meetings have taken place to develop ideas around what a multidimensional approach to migration, health, and well-being will look like. Although these discussions predated the current COVID crisis, the roles of migrant workers in the health service is now very prominent against the ironic tension with the Brexit campaign about saving our NHS from the pressure of migrants. These sandpits have inspired future large grant applications, and because discussions have already started, the theme can proactively respond when grant calls are released. Next slide, please. Humanities and social science scholars constantly criticise the limits of existing datasets, and this is where it is important to get input from experts in this field to ensure that maximum utility is being achieved from available data, and also, where appropriate, guiding new data collection processes. We're surrounded by good and bad examples of data visualization at this present time in the press, and within this theme we will ensure that the use of statistical models and their underlying assumptions and uses are fully understood. I will now pass over to Sveta to tell you more about the social science input into this signature research theme.
Next slide, please. Thanks very much, Rachel. I'm Sweta Rajan Rankin, and I represent our members from the social sciences. A unique feature of the migration and movement theme is our commitment as a civic university to engage with wider publics. This is exemplified by the work of our theme members, Dr. Bridget Ngandu, who is founder and key member of Social Workers Without Borders, an organisation providing support and advocacy for asylum seekers and refugees landing in Calais and Dunkirk. Refugee Tales, another initiative led by David Hurd, prefaces the lived experience and stories of migrants as they contend with the hostile environment policies of the UK government. The voices and lived experiences of migrants themselves is forefronted in all our work. Next slide. We are a participatory and democratically organized team, and we have a number of unique ways of working. Head-to-heads put together colleagues in different disciplines to reimagine topics of global importance. The Dead Grant Society allows us to revive unsuccessful grants and through interdisciplinary working, breathe new life into these grants so we can remain responsive and ready for grant calls. The marketplace could be a speed dating style rapid exchange forum where colleagues from the arts, humanities and sciences come together to brainstorm and think creatively. It is precisely in these forums that the proposals for the Leverhulme Doctoral Training Centre bid, for example, were germinated. Education remains a key priority for us, including proposed work to teach histories of colonialism and British Empire in schools through, for example, the Runnymede pilot projects. Next slide. We are alive in the migration and movement theme to the fact that migration is not only about the movement of people, or as David said earlier, even pathogens, but also all forms of transnational transfers, including social remittances to and from the global south in ways that sustain migrant lives. Next slide, please. In this provocative image, we see the art installation, The Sugar Sphinx, by the African-American artist Kara Walker. Created entirely by refined sugar, the Sugar Sphinx, with the body of a sphinx but the face of an African-American woman, is a homage to the labors of African-American workers who worked in this sugar refinery in New York, and also to remind us of the complex histories of migration and transnational slavery. Next slide, please. We are alive to the fact that stories of migration are not just stories of people, but also of objects, and that we live in spatial, temporal, and materially based cultures. In my work on human hair, I talk about the trade of human hair from hair cuttings in South Indian temples, transferred and translated into wigs sold in Brixton to the Black community, and how this shapes and tells us more about their sense of belonging. Our colleague Suki Bambra from the Medway School of Pharmacy explores the movement of holy basil from the Himalayan foothills down to the more recent homeopathic and other forms of remedies that we see in our shops today. Object biographies, therefore, tell us stories of how migrant lives are shaped by the movement of objects as well as knowledge. Next slide, please. We are committed to public engagement. And as David mentioned, we have plans to look at migration tours in relation to museum activity. But we also have exciting projects ahead, including the autobiography of 100 Moving Objects, a coffee table style book that we plan to put together among our members, and the Antique Roadshow in Reverse, where members bring their own objects and tell us stories about their movement and what these objects mean for them. Next slide, please. We'd like to conclude this presentation with significant thanks, particularly to our visionary and our leader, Yvonne Sherwood, and all our other members who are not here in this presentation, but who have nonetheless worked tirelessly in the background. We are a fluid, dynamic, emergent, and ambitious team. And we want to propose to the university that the importance of migration and movement is both future-looking and also will set Kent up in terms of being a leader in this particular field. With levels of forced movement set only to increase as a result of climate change, underdevelopment, war, and health crisis, and as the vulnerabilities of those forced to move become even more apparent, not least due to the present pandemic, it is crucial that we develop critical languages that grasp the lived realities of contemporary displacement. The Migration and Movement Network provides a portal to achieve these aims. On behalf of all our members, thank you for listening.
very much. And remember that if you have any questions or feedback about this theme, any of the presentations you've heard, or indeed the format of today's event, you can leave those comments on Facebook and YouTube, and those will be collated for later on. If you're a University of Kent academic and you're interested in signing up to the migration and movement theme, or obviously any of the other themes that we've heard today, please visit research.kent.ac.uk/signature-themes, where you can register your details. Well, that's it. We've now heard from all the presentations, and it leaves just to hear some closing remarks in a few moments' time. We'll be back for those. We're nearly at the end of the signature theme selection day, but I'm delighted to say I'm rejoined by Dr. Tim Hopthrow for some closing remarks. Dr. Hopthrow, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Cameron. We've seen 8 fantastic presentations today, really thought-provoking and really excellent engagement on and questions on the chat. The presentations show the breadth of activity across the University of Kent, and also the enthusiasm, commitment and thought that have gone into these 8 shortlisted themes. We've been very struck by the extent to which members of the university have embraced working across disciplines and silos as part of the Signature Themes project. An incredibly important part of the process has been to provide the space and validation for this interdisciplinary thought and working. In the current university world, this space and validation can be rare, and space and time to innovate is going to be incredibly important going forwards. And we're very committed to making that happen for the themes and for everybody across the university. This Signature Themes process has given us the opportunity to discuss our research environment at the University of Kent and what it means to us and what we need from it. And this has been a very useful interactive discussion, and it's something that we are very keen to keep on with, keep that interactive discussion about what our environment should look like and what it needs to comprise of, so that we can continue to develop it over the next few years. Inevitably, some themes will be chosen today and some may not be, but as it can be seen from all of the shortlisted themes today, the activity and networks, enthusiasm and collaborations they bring together are absolutely fantastic. And that's something we want to continue to capture and continue to support, whether a shortlisted theme is chosen to be a theme or not. And we will commit to doing so. Finally, we've got some thank yous to make. So please indulge us for a few more moments, because getting to this point has been a huge collaborative effort across the whole university. Firstly, I'd like to thank the team at KMTV. They've produced a very slick event today in the face of the pandemic and a situation that we're not used to. We're used to being in a venue on the university and seeing each other face to face, and to produce an event that has had so much engagement today has been fantastic, and we could not have done it without KMTV. So thank you very, very, very much to that. I'd like also to thank Professors Karen Cox, Philippe de Wilde and Shane Weller for their leadership in research across the university and their leadership on signature themes. It's been incredibly important, and thank you very much for that. I'd also like to thank people across the university. This has been a collaborative effort with wider support from across the university. Many times we've had to go to people and ask them for their help, whether that be technical, academic, whatever the engagement might have been. We've had a really fantastic response from people all across the whole university. So thank you very, very much for that. It's been brilliant. We've also called on reviewers internally and externally to the university who provided very valuable feedback to the themes, and thank you very much to that. We have an esteemed panel of internal and external experts this afternoon, and thank you to them for all of their time that they've given up in watching the presentations, reading the applications, and engaging with us this afternoon. We could not have done this without the Office for Scholarly Communications. They have been absolutely critical to the success of bringing themes online and to this event today. And there are three people in particular that I'd like to thank in the Office of Scholarly Communications. Petra Clues for her support, encouragement and challenge to us. Sarah Slow, thank you for your enthusiasm, your incredible problem-solving skills, your emailing, your tech support, your innovation. You've been integral to the creation of the themes, and we couldn't have done it without you. Thank you very much. And Josie Capelhorn, thank you for all your outstanding work on the themes, your amazing slides, we've all seen those slides, and your endless patience and commitment to delivering the themes. We're incredibly grateful for all your work and your approach over the last few months. Thank you. Thank you to the Task and Finish group that has been quite fluid in its membership and has been tasked with delivering these themes, and that includes a diverse range of people, including Paula Lane, Claire Dunning, Dawn Lyon, Yvonne Sherwood, Sarah Vickerstaff, Phil Ward, Carol Barron, Lucy Duran, and Alexandra Leduc-Pagal. And finally, I'd like to say a huge thank you to the theme leads and all the people engaged with making the themes what they are. They've contributed a huge amount of time, thought, and passion, and the energy and interest that we saw today, the excitement in those presentations today was fantastic. And so thank you very much for all the efforts you've put into that. I know often that's late into the night or at the weekends, and we really appreciate it. So thank you to all of you for watching today. Please do continue to engage with the themes and look out for more announcements about the next steps. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hopthrow. And of course, congratulations to all the teams on their presentations today and all that hard work that Dr. Hopthrow spoke about. We wish you all the very best with the final decisions. And thanks, of course, to you at home for watching and sending in your questions and comments, which will be invaluable to the decision-making process, which will be happening a little bit later on. If you did miss any of the presentations today or want to catch up on any of them, those links on Facebook and YouTube will be live after this event is finished, so you'll be able to refer to those in your own time. If you are interested in signing up to any of the themes that were presented today, you can of course go to research.kent.ac.uk/signature-themes, where you can register your details and find out more. That's it from us here. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you very much for watching.
A very, very warm welcome to the University of Kent.
Hi, my name is Olga. Welcome to the University of Kent's Canterbury campus. So this is Templeman Library. It's got so much study spaces for you and your friends to get some work done.
Hello and welcome to the Kent and Medway Medical School Virtual Open Day. We're here to tell you everything you need to know about studying at KMMS.
Our conference and events service is second to none in the South East, and of course we've got Kent Sports. We can do anything up here on the University of Kent campus.
For more than 30 years, the Mary Rose ruled the seas until her sinking in 1545. Almost 500 years later, she was raised from the seabed. It was another 2 decades until the University of Kent became involved in the ship's conservation.
Our purpose-built, award-winning concert hall is home to many of our rehearsals, performances, and also the lunchtime concert series.
I'd say get on the phone straight away and be calm. Instead of worrying about what you didn't get, worry about what you did get.
Send them towards the sky.
We'd like to thank you for working together to keep campus safe. And we look forward to welcoming you to Kent this autumn.
Thank you very much for watching, and we hope to see you soon.